Welcome back to my channel. I'm Brian Kafke, and we're continuing this series, Master Databricks and Apache Spark. We're on lesson 37, Scala. Do we need it? Notice the little cross-out thing. I'll explain that as we go along. All statements and opinions in this video are my own. I just want to make that disclaimer. It's nobody else's, no organization, just me. And for those people so inclined, I appreciate anyone who wants to support me on Patreon, get a bunch of benefits, including direct access to me. Now let's jump in. I want to emphasize this is an important topic. In the world where people have short attention spans and quickly jump away from something, I encourage you to stick with this if you are in the area of data science, data engineering, and you plan to work on Apache Spark and Databricks. Enough said. But please stick with it because this is an important topic, and I don't normally say that in my videos. What is Scala? Scala relationship to Spark? Do we need to use Scala? And Python versus Scala? And we can't leave a title out here without Scala in it, so when to use Scala. So let's jump in and talk more about these topics. What is Scala? It's an open source programming language built on top of Java. And it supports object-oriented and functional programming paradigms, which are extremely popular, very cool, and very powerful. I like to think of Scala as kind of a macro language riding on top of Java. Java is very verbose. It takes a lot of code to do things. And so the idea with Scala is kind of like you can do a lot leveraging Java without as much code to be written. Most importantly, it is a statically typed language. What does that mean, Brian? What is statically typed? If you're used to Python and R, then you have something called dynamically typed, which means that it doesn't really know the type of anything until you assign it a value. And once it gets a value, it types it accordingly. So you put a string in there, it says, oh, okay, that's a string, and you put an integer, and it matches the type. However, it will let you change the type. So you could start out with, in say, Python, putting an int in there, and then you say, I'm going to put a string in there now and something else later, and it doesn't give you any trouble. Strongly statically typed languages like Scala means that once you have assigned a type, you can't change it. It's done. It's cast in stone. That may seem to Python people a bit rigid, but it does have a lot of advantages, especially when you're going to do very large, very extensive, scaled out types of systems. Consider you're writing a function. In Python, you write a function and you pass parameters, but you can't define what type of data should go into those parameters, which can lead to code breaking and all kinds of fragility. If you expect an integer and you get a string, Python doesn't care and it will let you do that, but at some point your code will crash. Whereas a strongly typed language like Scala will stop that from happening, and so it can make your functions easier to test and verify that they work correctly. That's the biggest advantage that I see. There also can be some performance benefits as well. So let's talk a little bit more about Scala. Now I took this directly from the scala-lang.org site. You can go there and take a look in more details. Now here they say it's a seamless Java interop. The bottom line is it runs using the JVM, the Java virtual machine, and lets you use all of the libraries and things that are available in Java. It has type inference. So even though it's strongly typed, it can dynamically determine the type and then cast it in stone. So you can assign something to it and it won't give you a problem. But once you have assigned it, as we'll see in the more code section video later, you'll see that it will keep you to that type. A really powerful side too is it supports concurrently and distribution. Lots of multi-threading and parallel operations and all kinds of things you can think of doing if you're going to build a robust platform of some type. Combines the flexibility of Java-style interfaces with the power of classes. And it supports multiple inheritance, which is a powerful feature if you need it. Also very rich pattern matching, which supports objects, not just text, etc. And higher order functions. And the point here really is that when you get to functions, they are first-class objects in Scala, meaning you can pass them as parameters, etc. Do a lot with those. Now, what makes Scala different than other languages on Spark? Well, consider this diagram of all of the features, the basic architecture of Apache Spark. It's all written in Scala. Really? Everything? Pretty much. Some of the new performance-oriented features may be written in C++ or something like that, but the overall architecture and environment is actually implemented all in Scala. And that's a pretty compelling thing to think about. Let's take this a step further. If everything's written in Scala, then when you create a cluster and you've got this cluster manager, guess what's happening on all those nodes? They're running Scala, which means they're running Java, which means they're running a Java virtual machine. So we can see in this slide, each worker node is actually running a JVM, and that means that there's going to be some overhead if we were to use another language to execute on the worker nodes. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, but there's an effort required to move data in and out of a JVM, which makes Scala very appealing at first glance. So we're going to get into the question now, do we need to use Scala on Spark? Not do we want to, but do we need to? And I say this because for many years, I've seen posts and I've even been in interviews and things where people insist you must use Scala. It will perform better and this and that. So I want to address that question. So the reasoning for preferring Scala on Spark goes along these points. If Spark's written in Scala, Scala must be the best language to use. Spark's data currency is the RDD, which runs in Scala on JVMs. And that's a very interesting point. We're abstracting away from that, and I'll talk about that in a future slide here. But the RDD is ultimately what Spark always works in. Whether you're working with data frames or data sets, it will translate everything down to resilient distributed data sets. That's the RDD. And those must run in Scala on the JVMs at the end. So there is some interesting reasoning that goes along, well, if that's the case, wouldn't it make sense to use Scala? Scala's static typing means better performance. And using Scala makes me look smarter. And I know that seems silly, but there's always been a sort of, tech macho thing, as long as I can remember in tech, in which certain people or professionals look upon some languages as being somehow more gritty, more macho than others. So way back when I started, it was like C and then C++. Like those are real languages because they truly did compile to executables, were extremely fast, and you could reach in and do pointers and everything else in the thing. So it was pretty macho back for the language. And they would look down, for instance, on something Visual Basic. And then Visual Basic, which I would equate to very similar to, say, Python in many ways now, did a lot and was very powerful, but it was looked down on in some ways by people who thought they had more cool tools. Even C# developers have a tendency, I think, at least you feel this a little bit sometimes, that they kind of look down on Visual Basic and they say, oh, I'd rather use C#. Guess what? It doesn't even matter. The underlying libraries are identical. There's no difference. But don't tell them. So the point here is, though, there's going to be people who say Rust is powerful, Scala is more robust and more extensive, etc. So we have to be careful about these sort of biases that don't really have a good basis. So just be careful of that type of thing. You're not a real programmer if you don't use X, that kind of thing. Does Scala perform better? Now that's a really interesting question. Well, way back before Spark 1.6 or so, yeah, there were good reasons. Python and R was starting to emerge as potential, languages used in Spark, but they were very immature. They couldn't reach into the full API, especially R. And there were a lot of performance issues around it. So yeah, it made sense in many cases to favor Scala. Not going to argue that one. But Spark 1.6 is a long way ago. In Spark world, 5 years is ancient history. And 1.6 goes back like 5 years or more. We're talking now already 3 point something, 3.3 or above, I think, of Spark. So ancient history. So not since then, 1.6 and up, we've got a big shift. These are massive seismic shifts instituted by Databricks. Thank you, Databricks. First thing they did is they added SQL really early, actually, before 1.6, I believe. I think it was 1.0. SQL was added. But the extension of the SQL engine, Spark SQL, extended into creating Spark data frames. So now you had Python and R feeling data frames, but they were Spark data frames, meaning distributed. Now you might sit there and say, well, what's the big deal? Very important shift. Instead of you as the developer worrying about getting good performance and optimizing everything you're doing, you can now pass that burden on to the Spark optimizer. And it's called Catalyst. And what it will do is analyze what you're doing and then figure out the best way to get it done. Best of all, you don't have to work in resilient distributed data sets, the RDDs, which are really difficult and awkward to work with as a rule. Instead, you can work in comfortable paradigms like data frames and the SQL language, and those automatically feed into the optimizer. And the reason they do that, and I've watched many Databricks presentations where they talk about this, is that because you're using syntax that is something that is easy to read, the optimizer can too. So SQL, for instance, it can see your joins and filters, but that's also true in Python, right? You do filters, etc., and joins, and you can see what's happening. So the optimizer can say, oh, I see you want to do a join. I better optimize for that. Oh, I see you're going to aggregate. I'll optimize for that. RDDs lack that transparency. They're black boxes to Spark. Can't be optimized. So that's a game changer right there. Another game changer, Apache Arrow. I'm going to talk a little more about this. I've talked about it before, but it is a game changer. Why, Brian? Why is it such a big deal? Well, it eliminates this Java virtual machine serializing and deserializing of data between Scala, and some other language like Python or R. That's the big takeaway, because that had been a very big sinkhole of performance in the past. But with Apache Arrow, it's almost magically eliminated. So let's take a closer look at that in a minute. Bottom line here, I want you to take away is generally Python can perform as well as Scala on Spark. And for that matter, to some level R as well. So let's look at Arrow and why is it a big deal? Prior to Arrow, we see here worker nodes, 1 and 2. It could be any number of nodes. And imagine, in this case, we're using R, it could be Python, but we have a function. And we want to take a function, we distribute it over our cluster nodes, and within it, it's processing a data frame. So of course that data frame is chunked, right? It's their little section or partition of the data frame being processed across the nodes, therefore in parallel. But look what's happening. Ultimately, it has to be converted into the JVM, whatever we're doing. That means that Spark is going to have to take each row of the data frame that the user-defined function wants to work with, and it's going to have to convert it to strings, called serializing it. Then it's going to pass it over to the JVM, and the JVM has to reconstitute into something it can work with, which is deserializing it. So I kind of look at this as converting it to like JSON, then back into an object, then JSON again. And if you think of it going back and forth like this, you can see there's a huge amount of overhead in doing something like that. And if this is a really large data set, it's only going to get worse. And that was a really strong argument in the past for using something like Scala, which avoids all this overhead. But then, Arrow came along. What does Arrow do? Well, notice what's happening. No more conversion. No more serializing and deserializing. No. What's happening now is Arrow said, you know what? I'm just going to replace that JVM storage format with Arrow. And I'm just going to replace the R or Python storage format with Arrow. They're going to be the same. Best of all, Arrow is actually better than both of them. It's compressed, it's column store, it's extremely efficient. So we get better performance in both, regardless of the deserializing, serializing, but you also get the elimination of this conversion back and forth. And that's a game changer, which puts Python on equal footing with Scala. So look at this a little more closely to kind of restate what I'm saying. When we look at the Java virtual machine working in R and Python, this data going back and forth, it's slow, but once it's replaced with Arrow, we don't have to worry about this. So Python versus Scala. After SQL, Python is the most popular language on Spark. And PySpark is getting lots and lots of improvements. Databricks is clearly putting a lot of work onto Python and support in Spark. And open source projects like Arrow just make it even better. Just keep eliminating the kind of roadblocks that we've had in the past. New Spark features tend to be supported in Python first. This is something I've noticed, so take a look yourself, but I've noticed, like, I'll look at documentation, and where 5 years ago I'd see Scala examples first, now I'm seeing Python in the examples first. There's a massive set of libraries and frameworks for Python. If you work with Python, then you already know this, right? There's just thousands and thousands of really useful libraries across the board. And most importantly, many of those libraries are focused on data science and AI, visualization libraries, model training libraries, all kinds of things to manipulate data and data engineering work, etc. It's all there. So Python has become really, I think, the de facto language for data science. But another thing I want to mention is supportability. If you happen to be a Scala developer and you love Scala, that's great. But if you're in a place where nobody else knows it, or it could be an issue, you don't have enough Scala developers say, in the company, you have to consider supportability. This is a professional level thing. So if you're new to being a data professional or aspiring to be a data professional, there's a point at which, as a professional, you need to look beyond yourself and consider longer term things like supportability. You might be able to write and do great things in Scala, but how easy is it going to be to find Scala developers down the road to replace you or other people that have written code in them? When should you use Scala? When your team is trained in Scala, you don't have any problem with supporting the Scala language, then why not use it? They want to use it, you like it, great, use the language. There are still, I believe, edge cases where Scala will probably perform better. In cases where you need to take unstructured data and process it and use RDDs, etc., then you're probably going to get better performance with Scala and have better control. If you need to or want to use the strongly typed dataset API, which is only available in Scala, it's another good reason why you might choose it. And of course, I'm sure there are other edge cases where Scala makes more sense. You need the features of Scala. Scala has a very different mindset and feature set than something like Python. If you need those features, by all means, Scala would be the place to go. Take advantage of it. So wrapping up, we talked about what is Scala, and we learned that it's a sort of derivative, high-level abstraction on top of Java. And in that, it also uses the Java virtual machine. What's the relationship of Scala to Spark? Well, Scala is the language Spark is written in, and that poses a lot of interesting things, most notably that originally it was the best language for performance on Spark and even just to access all the features of Spark. But as we discussed, that's changed over time, and you need to really carefully consider if you need to use Scala or want to use Scala in a given engagement. So the question still comes back to, do we need to use Scala? And I think the answer is you should have Scala in your back pocket, in your toolkit to be able to use. If you're an experienced Scala developer, I don't mean to discourage you from using it, but also I do want to say don't close yourself off to other languages, most notably Python. The takeaway really is that Python is becoming more and more the dominant language on Spark, and I would encourage people to focus more on that than Scala. Don't worry so much about Scala would really be my message. Databricks clearly is reaching out and supporting Python more and more, but I did talk about when to use Scala, and I think one of the reasons why you want to always have Scala as a potential in your toolkit is that there are going to be times when Scala just makes better sense. That's it for today. I want to thank you for watching. Please make comments in the description. If you disagree, that's great. If you made it this far, kudos to you. Until next time, I'm pulling for you. We're all in this together.